Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christine Krabel, and I am a research associate at the Center for International Law. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the launch of the ASEAN Integration Through Law book series, published by Cambridge University Press. This is a happy occasion, and we are delighted to have with us the editors of the series, Professor Joseph Weiler and Dr. Tan Hsien Lee, along with several authors of the series, Professor Walter Woon, Professor Simon Chesterman, Dr. Chia Xiao Yue, Mrs. Rena Lee, and Mr. Edmund Sim, as well as members of the publishing team at Cambridge University Press. Welcome. It is also our pleasure to have with us at this launch Professor S. Jai Kumar, Chairman of CIL's International Advisory Panel, and Professor Tommy Koh, Chairman of CIL's Governing Board. Welcome, professors. We also want to thank members of CIL's Governing Board and Embassy Friends for being with us today. Without further delay, I would now like to invite CIL's Director, Robert Beckman, to the rostrum to say a few words. Professor Beckman.
Thank you very much, and thanks to everyone for coming. Former Secretary General Severino, thank you very much. It's my pleasure to welcome you here on behalf of CIL. The impetus for this project began way back even before CIL was originally formed, with conversations with Joseph Weiler on what we could be doing, sitting around the offices in the law school. And it's been a project that's been long in fruition, but we're finally reaching a milestone where the books are coming out. More will be coming out. We're very pleased at how the project has developed. We hope it will make an impact on the development of rule of law in the region. We're very proud of what's been done. And the man behind it, I think, is the man I would want to introduce, because he is one of the leading experts in the world on regional integration. As a young man, worked on European integration through law, a project looking at the United States and what Europe could learn from it. He is the brains behind the conceptualizing the project and bringing a lot of people together. Hsien Lee has been working diligently with him in Italy, editing the volumes. The Cambridge University Press deserves a great thanks for their cooperation in putting the program together. We did have a very soft launch of this project at the American Society of International Law meeting due to the efforts of Ed Sim. We were at the Carnegie Endowment, and so we had an American launch. But this is the real launch of the project, and we are very pleased, and I'd like to now invite Professor Joseph Weiler.
Thank you very much. I don't hear very well in my left ear. But if I'm not mistaken, I did not hear the name of Michael Ewing Chow being mentioned. And he really ought to be mentioned, because he, together with me and Hsien Lee, was one of the architects of this project. I even think it was his idea to go back to the original integration through law. Maybe not. It's an ambiguous credit. We did the review of the literature together, and the three of us really designed the project and worked our way through it. It's been a long time, so he deserves every bit of credit as anybody else that has been mentioned so far. Thank you, Michael. It's sort of funny to hear people say about the launch of the project. The project was launched 5 years ago or so. This is the launch of the end of the project. It's finally coming to a conclusion. It's a big project, so there cannot be a real date. If we waited for the last straggler to come in with his or her book, it might be a long wait. And maybe I should sort of hide under the table because I'm one of those stragglers. But we thought there's enough critical mass of books produced. Eventually between 25 and 30 books will be there. There's enough critical mass to say, yes, this boat is not going to sink. And not only that, this is an important boat, and I want to say something about it. So more than a launch, it's a celebration. It's a celebration of an important project that is coming now to its conclusion, and in the academic world, the sign of conclusion is that you get books produced and published by hopefully a distinguished press, and I think Cambridge University Press is second to none in that respect. And there's no sweetheart deal here. Every manuscript was refereed by independent external referees, and I'll tell you a secret, not all of them made the cut. So in the interest of ensuring quality, not every manuscript that was sent to us in the context of this project made the cut. And that's one of the advantages also of publishing with a distinguished press, because it does give at least some warranty of quality, which is not to say that we will not have some critical book reviews, but you all know the world of book reviewing. If you yourself write a book review, it's like an accounting firm that does an audit. To give an audit which says everything is perfect, you're risking your reputation. So to write a book review and say everything is perfect in the book, you're risking your reputation. So most book reviews are ABAs. This is a good book, here are some problems, this is a good book. And I expect that most of the reviews of our books in the series will be ABAs. And that is probably true for the project as a whole. This is a good project, there's some problems, it's a good project. What's special about the project? I think, of course, there's been a lot of research about ASEAN, but there are two things that perhaps distinguish our particular project conducted under the auspices of CIL. The first thing, as far as I know, it's the first systematic, with the design, working our way from A to Z. One can quibble with the design, but there was a design. There was a beginning and a middle and an end, and an attempt to follow through with different studies, covering internal aspects, covering in pioneering studies, external relations, looking at topics that somehow get off the book but are very important, like rules of origin or investment. So I think that's in some ways a first, to have a systematic, comprehensive project, and in that respect it will probably be the reference set of books for a few years to come, until somebody will come along and 10 years later do some repeat. And the other thing was the concentration on institutional and legal dimensions. It's obvious we are the Center for International Law, but we also took our cue from ASEAN itself. The Charter, in some ways, at least on its face, was an attempt to lay down a more solid foundation for the rule of law in the operation of ASEAN. As part of this project, Michael, Sian Lee and I think we interviewed up to today in all member states, either the foreign minister or a former foreign minister, in some cases a prime minister. In other words, the people whose lives were intertwined, a few secretary generals and former secretary generals of ASEAN. And I must say, some of them looked at us and said, "The rule of law, where did you take that from?" So I opened the charter and I said, And then we have that catch-all phrase, the thing that means everything to everybody, the ASEAN Way. When somebody doesn't agree with you about ASEAN, they always say, but you don't understand the ASEAN Way. And if you are not Asian, as I am, not, although I've adopted Singapore, I'm not sure Singapore has adopted me. So I've often said, the ASEAN Way, you don't. Usually the ASEAN Way is invoked as an explanation why things are not happening the way they were designed to happen, because it's the ASEAN Way. I actually have become a big admirer of the ASEAN Way. We are developing a theory of integration, so a little bit of substance. So first of all, this is academia, so I'll get to the policy in a minute. And the field of comparative integration studies, whether they admit it or not, from the 1950s onwards, has been dominated as the reference point by European integration. People, they will deny it, but it's always the reference point. And it's the reference point also normatively. In other words, the closer you get to the model of the European integration, the more integration it is, the better integration it is, the better compliance there is, etc., etc. We took a political decision to say in comparative context, and not to say we're comparing to Europe, but in the course of this study, it slowly occurred to us that there is really a theory error, a category error, that it's not politically wrong to take the European Union and European integration as the reference point, the yardstick. It's conceptually and theoretically wrong because it only represents one model of integration. It's not that other models of integration are on the same paradigm, just less of it. So, for example, the European Union is very proud, and it's a hallmark of European integration, that there's been constitutionalization, that the treaties in a way are the constitution of the European Union. But it comes with a heavy cost, and I'll give you two costs. One, they cannot join the European Convention on Human Rights. The European Court of Justice has just said so. They said because of this, and this, but if you look at the conditions, it means they can never be a member of the European Convention of Human Rights. That's a price of constitutionalization. And another price, their hands are hemmed. They face now a serious problem of internal security. Right? Charlie Hebdo as a proxy. They can't do anything because it's outside the constitutional remit of the European Union. You take ASEAN, it's not constitutionalized, and I'm not turning a vice into a virtue. I'm turning a virtue into a virtue. And because it's not constitutionalized, at any ministerial meeting, at any meeting of the heads of state and government, they are free to put whatever topic they want on the agenda, according to the needs and exigencies of this region. And yet, in study after study, the lack of constitutionalization is supposed to be a deficiency. It comes with a heavy price. And I can give you other examples of why one has to look at this as a different model. Having said that, now comes the but. The ASEAN way means that, A, you never embarrass each other in public. I really think that that is part of the story. And B, that you work by consensus. There are lots of other dimensions to the ASEAN way, but I think those are two primordial things. You operate by consensus and you never embarrass each other in public. So I just claimed as a virtue, you know, they have 1,000 meetings a year. And if you look at the production, it's momentous, it's voluminous. Decision after decision, agreement after agreement, communique after communique. On the production